The Time Meddler, the ninth and final serial of Doctor Who's second season, first broadcast in 4 parts from the 3rd to the 24th of July 1965 and written by Dennis Spooner. Now, when I've been asked on social media which stories people like, this is apparently a fan favourite first Doctor story. People absolutely love this one, so it's time to check it out. The first Doctor, played by William Hartnell, and his companion, Vicky Pallister, played by Maureen O'Brien, have just said goodbye to their friends Ian Chesterton and Barbara Wright, who have chosen to use the Dalek time machine to return to the 1960s. Obviously, they are feeling a little bit down after it, but they soon find they've got a stowaway on board the TARDIS, that being Stephen Taylor, played by future Blue Peter presenter Peter Purvis. Now, Stephen is a little hesitant to believe they're on a time machine. He admits the Doctor's TARDIS is magnificent, but he's still a little unconvinced that this is actually a time machine. But to prove him wrong, the Doctor takes them to a beach in the kind of mid-11th century. And while there, they end up encountering a group of Saxons, including Edith, a kindly Saxon, played by Althea Charlton, Eldred, a rather more gruff one, played by Peter Russell, and the leader of the Saxon tribe, Wulnoth, played by Michael Willer. But they soon find out there's a lot more actually going on here than just Saxons, as there is also a mysterious figure known as the Monk, played by Peter Butterworth. And as the Doctor soon finds out, the Monk is actually a Time Lord like himself. I mean, the Time Lords weren't named at this period in time, or if they were, they weren't explained exactly where they were from. But the Monk is revealed to be from the same place as the Doctor, even as a TARDIS himself, which he is disguised as a Saxon sarcophagus. And the Monk, he actually is planning to change time. Like, he wants to manipulate time. I'm not sure for his own amusement. He says it's for the betterment of humanity and for the betterment of Britain, but it's hard to not see that he's doing it purely for his own amusement. I mean, what the Monk is trying to do is he also tries to manipulate the Saxons into setting up a series of beacons along the cliff. Because it turns out this is 1066. Now, of course, in the 1066 as we know it, Harold Godwinson defeated Harold Hardrada at the Battle of Stamford Bridge, but was then tragically defeated in the Battle of Hastings when he got an arrow through his eye. So yeah, not a brilliant year for him. But the Monk wants to change that. He wants to set up beacons along the cliff, which will draw in the Vikings, i.e. Harold Hardrada, nearer to the shore, where he can then use a special gun to disintegrate the Vikings, like kill them outright. Because he believes that if he can do this, the Saxons will no longer have to face the Vikings, meaning they'll be fresh-faced to fight the Normans when they invade in 1066, and thus Harold Godwinson will remain king. Now, I'm not sure I entirely follow his logic on the entire thing. I mean, just because Harold Godwinson wouldn't have had to have faced Harold Hardrada, that doesn't necessarily mean he would have won against William the Conqueror, but anyway. As I said, I'm not entirely sure whether the Monk is just trying to do this for his own amusement, but we do end up also encountering 2 Vikings, named Ulf, played by Norman Hartley, and Sven, played by David Anderson. And then basically it's just a race against time for the Doctor to prevent the Monk's plans and set history back to rights. To which this story, of course, introduced the Monk, who would become a fan favourite character, played by Peter Butterworth here, and then later played in Big Finish by Rufus Hound, who I know very well, and who also appeared later on in the 12th Doctor adventure, The Woman Who Lived, as Sam Swift, which is very good, and also he's also played in Big Finish by I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue panellist Graham Garden, which I'm glad to see. Like, it's nice to see I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue and Doctor Who get a thing together. And you know what? I do see why people like this story. I don't necessarily know if it's one of the best, but I know people would disagree with me on that and say it is one of the best stories, and I can see why people love it. It's a good story. And just having another person like the Doctor, a Time Lord, but this one doing more sneaky deals, it works. I mean, as the pamphlet inside said, the monk wouldn't be seen again. It wouldn't be until 1971 that we would, in fact, get another rival Time Lord with the Master. So, yeah, I do actually think this is a good one, and people should check it out. I also do like how the Doctor eventually ends up defeating the monk. Although, I will admit, when it's shown the kind of Saxons attacking the monastery and the monk having to flee and all that, there was one thing that did kind of bother me slightly, and that was just like, can't the monk still enact his plan? I mean, he's still got the gun set up on the cliff, but I guess the reasoning now is because the Saxons didn't like the beacon, and because they won't now, because, well, they know the monk is a terrible person, the Vikings won't come near to the cliff, and therefore he won't get a clean shot. I mean, that's kind of what I saw, but part of my mind towards the end was still thinking, you still got the gun set up on the cliff, can't you still eviscerate the Vikings and change history? But, nah, I guess not. But then the Doctor ends up effectively stranding him because he removes something like the dimensional control in the monk's TARDIS, meaning that the monk's TARDIS effectively shrinks so small he can't use it. He goes back to the sarcophagus and thinks, well, time to head off. Tries to get in, and then discovers he can't anymore because the inside is too small. Which, I'll admit, that's kind of humorous, but also, even though he caused trouble, you can't help but feel bad for him. I mean, he's stuck in the 11th century now with no way home. So, you do understand he did bad things, but you can't help but feel a little bit sorry for him. It also does feature something that I guess most TV shows at the time did, but yeah. When the Doctor and co first arrive on the beach and they find a Viking helmet, that Viking helmet technically isn't historically accurate, as we now know the Vikings didn't actually have horns on their helmet. Like, they had nothing on their helmets, they just had simple helmets. But then again, I can't expect a show that's been going now for nearly 60 years now to always have been historically accurate. But there you go. That's my quick review of The Time Meddler, and I do see why people loved it. Anyway, what will be my next Class Doctor Who story? Once again, at this point, no idea. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, until next time, see ya.